Thank you, everyone for attending in person and online. We've been really excited to share the work we've been doing on OSD Cloud and show new things. I'm David Segura, I'm MVP in PowerShell, and let's get started. So, why is this a preview? We literally have way too much to present at MMSMOA, so I'm begging Greg to find us another session if there's enough demand. So if you want to see more of this that we don't have time to cover today in a deep dive, please add that to chat and share some feedback. So as I said, I'm David Segura. I'm a software PM for HP on our workforce experience platform. Also a PowerShell MVP, and OSD is just a hobby for me. Feel free to hit me up on either of these links at any time. I'm joined online by two very awesome friends. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Michael Escamilla, currently customer engineer over at Patch My PC. So if you're a customer, I'm sure you've probably gotten me in a support case responding to you. I've been there for about 8 months now, loving every moment so far. Really got to thank them for allowing us to, not just encourage us and supporting us to kind of go beyond, what Patch My PC supports and give back to the community. So yeah, recently been kind of moonlighting as the OSDCloud intern, I like to call myself, helping out, David and Gary here wherever I can. So yeah, I'll hang out in Discord and Reddit, so you might see me over there as well. But yeah, happy to be here. You can contact me, Twitter, LinkedIn, if you got any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Please follow him. You missed the link, so I'm sure he'll put it in chat. Thanks, Michael. We'll chat in a few.
Yeah.
And the awesome Gary Block. Let's take a tour of Garytown. Take it away, Gary.
Yeah, I'm Gary. It's nice to see you guys all. And Michael, yeah, I'm so glad you've joined out as our resident intern. It's been so handy to like, hey, there's stuff going on. I don't have time. Can you throw an issue in and start going for that? So thank you again for jumping in and helping, because it is a community project. These aren't things that we're getting paid to do. We just kind of do them for fun because we have a big interest in this area. So having you there has been great. So I thought it'd be fun, like when I first got into IT to now, the little bit different things. And this is kind of like my little icebreaker. So I really got into IT when I graduated college at 20. And so back then I drove a Jetta, and now I drive a Nissan passenger van. Back then I thought about maybe having kids, and now I have 9. I did help desk at a small business, and now I sit at a desk in my basement, helping a lot of businesses. And at 20, I lived on a friend's couch, and now I can't find room to sit on my own couch. So that's the difference between then and now.
And Gary, you wanted to give us some highlights of your MOA sessions?
Yeah, sure. So this year I'm in 5 official sessions, plus then I'll be jumping in, hanging out with David on his sessions. So I'm going to cover a couple of the ones that I'll be spending most of my time in here. So session 1, Mike Terrell and I have been doing sessions for years. So I'm over at 2 Pint now. And it's been fun. The last several jobs I've been at, I've been working with friends who are colleagues then for years. And so at 2 Pint now, it's cool because I get to go back and hang out with Mike all day, virtually, of course. But so we've been working on this BlackLotus for a couple of years now. It's been 2 years since Microsoft announced this issue where they're going to be making some major changes to the boot process. And if you don't know anything about BlackLotus, just consider that you had a nice couple of years of bliss, because this was going to come fast and furious over the next year and a half. They'll be having to push out remediations for this as they need to get those certs updated. So Mike and I have spent a ton of hours developing methods for remediation and trying to dumb this down as the documentation that Microsoft put out there isn't always clear, and they are changing it frequently. Like if you go back and look at the Wayback Machine for when they first released it, it's had a number of iterations. So we're going to cover that. They recently added a fourth step to the process, which makes it even more confusing. But we'll explain what's going on there, and then we're going to provide a task sequence and a bunch of PowerShell scripts for if you want to use the Intune remediation, baselines, however, whatever system you're using. We're going to make it possible for you to stay on top of that and do reporting. So we're going to cover that. It will be a good couple-hour session. Once again, please come with Q&A. This has been actually my evenings for the last month. Whenever I get time, I'm trying to work on this. And the code itself isn't hard. It's just the intense logic behind it, because it requires 2 reboots before you go to the next phase. And if you're going to let end users manage those reboots, it's a lot of like keeping track of stuff. So this one's hurt my brain. I've rewritten it several times to try to accommodate end users without doing disruptions. All right, yeah, go ahead, Mike. David, to the next one. Oh yeah. So besides, so I was nominated for MVP last year, and thank you for that. And I actually received MVP status in PowerShell and Windows. And that's a lot in thanks to spending a lot of time in OSD Cloud. And so I have 2 passion areas when it comes to IT. It's endpoint management, especially with the major OEMs like HP, and also OSD. Like those, I really, so with OSD Cloud, I was able to merge those. And I had a lot of plans for OSD Cloud when I first started working with David on that, for like incorporating Dell, Lenovo, HP integrations. And then I got hired by one of those OEMs, and they were not too happy with the idea of me improving OSD Cloud for any other company other than HP. So a lot of my thoughts got put on the back burner there. So over the last couple of years, I did do a lot of things for HP. And in the process, I learned a lot of how HP and the other OEMs work behind the scenes with their APIs and their catalogs and their tools. So in this session, I'm going to go into how the different OEMs provide tooling for PowerShell, and how you can take and boil it down to managing your endpoints with 100% PowerShell. And the reason I like to boil stuff down to just PowerShell is then you can plug it into any management system you have. I mean, you could even do it through policy. I mean, you wouldn't, but like it's possible because you can do anything with PowerShell. So we're going to go deep into Dell, HP, Lenovo. And if there's anyone in the crowd who raises a hand for Panasonic, I'll even touch on that, because Panasonic's actually got a pretty solid offering compared to some of the others, which I was really shocked about when I started digging into Panasonic. But we're going to go into all the different offerings they have, and then how to take it to the next level by doing a bunch of automation around the different tools they have using PowerShell.
Gary, we've got someone in chat saying your mic is sometimes going in your collar and getting muffled.
Oh, sorry. I tend to move a lot, so I'll try to do better. Like just still.
We ready for session 3?
Yeah, task sequences. So Matt Zatsky and he actually lives fairly close to me, about 45 minutes away. He's one of my closest, physically closest colleagues that I have around here, and I say colleagues as in the community. He works for the University of Minnesota, but we carpool to our local. It's down in the metro, so 2.5 hour drive monthly. So we carpool, we get to hang out and talk. And we both are huge into task sequences and OSD, so we're going to be bringing you a presentation on OSD and task sequences, and how you can be using them for all sorts of things, and we're going to cover the basics of what ADK you should be looking at. Should you be patching your ADK? And all the way up to like, how do you get this to zero touch? Like, that's the goal, right? Continuously going to the point where you can just kick it off, walk away, come back, and you are at your login screen. So we're going to go over all the different ways to do dynamic variables, front ends, reporting, just overall task sequences. Especially as we see a lot of people actually moving into CM for the first time, even though it's kind of a funny stage because everybody keeps wanting to push to cloud, but I've seen a ton of people like actually just start getting into CM for the first time. So as they are trying to move off of MDT and they're making the way into Config Manager. So we're gonna have a lot of information there, and yeah, so that's what I'll be talking about. Hope to see you there.
Questions from Gary? Online, any questions from Gary for Gary? We'll keep rolling. Thank you, Gary. Thanks for coming. So back to the preview. Let's get started with the first half, the OSD Cloud preview. So what is it? It's we're going to preview our next release of OSD Cloud, which we're going to privately give to attendees at MMSMOA, and then we'll release it publicly shortly thereafter. So we encourage you to please attend our sessions if you can. Why preview here? This gives us 2 months to get feedback from everyone who's joined online and everyone who's here, and to get things right, to make sure we're in the right direction. So please fill out evaluations and feedback and let us know. Are there major changes? Absolutely. On the outside, it may look like we haven't changed much, but all of the mechanics, all of the code internally has been completely redesigned from the ground up. So the new version will require some migration. So going back to, can we change Google? That's going to stop because we're not doing any more dev on V1. So what prompted the change? The MVP and community feedback. Almost all of the features today were from feedback from Mirko, specifically from Workplace Ninja in Switzerland. So thank you for all the feedback from that conference, and look forward to seeing you all again. So let's get started again. So what about OSDCloud V1? Driver packs that operate in V1 will be maintained until the end of 2025. While we do need driver packs in V2, we're looking at different, catalog formats and a way to get that more automated. So we don't want to have any constraints on V1 that hold back V2. The operating systems, we don't plan on adding any new releases. So if there's a Windows 25 H2, it probably will not be in V1. That's intentional pain to get you to move to V2. Everything else should function as is. We're not going to pull it. It's just going to operate without any changes. So hopefully you will embrace the new OSD Cloud by the end of this year. So the requirements for OSD Cloud Preview, you will have to build WinPE using OSDWorkspace, which we'll cover in the second half. Windows 11 24H2 WinRE will be used. We're not going to be using the ADK WinPE. Older versions of Windows 11, like 23H2, might work, but we won't plan and invest any time in testing or developing or fixing if they don't. And that's simply because we just don't have enough hours to test every single version of WinRE against OSD Cloud. So there will be 4 PowerShell modules. 2 of them have One of them is the old OSD that runs OSDCloud V1. There is a new PowerShell module called OSDCloud that has been released to the PowerShell gallery this week, and without any fanfare, and that's how we want it. That's the engine for the new OSDCloud. And there will be two supporting functions, one for WinPE that handles all the startup tasks for WinPE, and finally a cloud.core function, which will, or module, which we'll discuss later. So we'll do a quick demo of WinPE startup using the new format. On this one, I'm just going to do it in Hyper-V. And this was built using WinRE, using Windows 11 24H2 with those following PowerShell modules. So let me see if I can find the startup, and I can see this is already started up. So I'm just going to give it a nice clean reboot. And let me know if you can see this, if hopefully this is sized enough. What we're missing here from V1 is the old StartNet. That's gone. Now, the first 5 seconds, if you have any hardware that has an error, this will be displayed. And this is simply to give you enough time to take a picture of the hardware IDs that you're missing in WinRE, in the WinPE environment, and to get those drivers added. Very helpful when, new models come out and they just don't work. You can't get on the network, wireless doesn't work. So that's something new that's been added. All of these, if we look down at the bottom, automatically OSK, the on-screen keyboard, is minimized. So if you do have a touch device and you don't have a keyboard, it's going to be there so you can actually work and function in WinRE. The second window that's minimized is a list of your hardware, and you will be able to see any hardware that has an error, but this is all the hardware that is present and detected. I know I'm in Hyper-V, so this is real basic, but if you were to run this on actual hardware and non-virtual, this would show you every piece of hardware, and you'll be able to see which has drivers and which doesn't. So very good for troubleshooting. It doesn't need to stay open. You can close it, do whatever you want with that. The second minimized PowerShell window is simply ipconfig, lets you know you're connected to the network, lets you know your network adapter has been found. Good information, very basic, but it serves a purpose. It's functional. And finally, we haven't really messed with this. This is the old startup. This looks very similar. But one thing you'll notice is PE, I'm able to scroll and resize the text so I don't have to use Zoom It in WinPE. So I never learned Zoom It. So I like being able to do this now. We did figure out the issue with the Force V2 problem in WinPE, so that's been addressed. So remote control and Dart should work. But what this is just giving me is some basic information and letting me know that, oh, okay, autopilot is supported. So any questions on PE? Startup, I mean, if you've seen PE startup once, you've seen it 1,000 times. It's nothing fancy, but we feel like this gets the job done, gives us the information we need. Wireless is in here. That window that popped up went away rather quickly. We are not using Google anymore to check for internet connectivity, so that's been addressed in V2. So looking back. Questions? No one?
No questions about this right now. We had one asking if any OSD builder functions will make it into this.
Offline, that's an offline. That's
Yeah.
not even on today's agenda. So a screenshot of the hardware error window. So let's get into the preview of OSDCloud. So we're using a new function just for today's purpose. And that is start. What's the Michael? What is it?
OSDCloud
Start
preview.
OSDCloud preview. And what you're immediately going to notice is we're going to initialize some things, and I'll come back to this. It's scrolled past that, but let's look back at what's happening here. So we have added a gather step to collect all the hardware information. So we know what is and what isn't supported. There's an initialize function which imports OS defaults. This is what gives us our operating system maps, where we know, okay, these are the versions that are going to be present in the UX. These are the additions and languages. So that's all controlled by the OS defaults. There are user settings which will control the front end, and there are workflow steps that get imported. And we're going to we're going to show you the variables that are currently addressed, currently calculated, and we can see here there are some defaults set. So this will install Windows 11. Another major change is we're going to, the default for V1 was Enterprise. We're changing that to Pro in V2, retail. So it's more aligned with retail devices. So you should just be able to take all defaults with Pro. If you want Enterprise, you're going to have to select that. But we think that this aligns us more with what people are using. And this will automatically fill out your hardware, and it'll select a driver pack object if one's been calculated already. So all of the work is already done by the time the front end is launched here. Now, what you'll see here is this is half functional, and I say that because not everything in here is working. So it looks very similar to OSDCloud V1. Some things that have changed is we have steps where we are going to be adding some actions in, so you can control different steps within the flow. TPM and autopilot, they are green. If they are not green, it's because TPM is not compatible with 2.0 or autopilot won't work. So that is functional. Tools. Thought we'd throw on some tools that you can get to rather quickly. If we want to start PowerShell or PowerShell 7, we could get to that from here. And help. So these are still being tweaked. If you've got some feedback on the front end and the controls you want to see, please add that to chat. Dropping down into the main UX, we now have a workflow. And this is what we're aligning with. The name task sequence was already taken, so we decided to just go with workflow, but it's essentially a task sequence, and we're now able to offer multiple workflows based on how you want to deploy the machine. And core is the one we're starting with. Core, what our definition of core is core would be a very clean, minimal installation of Windows 11, just as if you were to do it using an ISO. So you're not going to have any OSDCloud logs or anything OSDCloud leaves behind or anything. It is a very clean and core. And then we build on top of that with different versions. Gary is going to be working on a pro version that's got some more advanced features. But the modularity of what we've done in OSDCloud allows us to do these things. And if you recall, there was a module that I said we talk about later, the PowerShell module, OSDCloud.core. That's going to give us core functionality. So when we are ready to release pro functionality, that's going to be a separate module. So you will have the ability to pick and choose what configurations you want within the new OSDCloud. Now, you'll see edition ID is present. doesn't do anything. It's mirrored with addition. But what we've done here is there were always issues with matching the addition with the index on an ISO or in the ESD. That always gave us problems. And so now we're aligning with the edition ID and then searching for that edition ID once we download the image. So we shouldn't have any more issues with the index not being supported in the ESD we've downloaded if you've ever seen that problem. So that's corrected. It is still broken in V1 and it will remain there, unfortunately. Driver packs. What we see here, okay, I'm on a VM. I would not normally expect to see hardware driver packs in here, but these are going to be filtered based on the model, the hardware manufacturer that you booted to. So if I boot to an HP device, I'm going to see none and Microsoft update, and then I'm going to see HP drivers. So you're not going to get this, list of 1,000 entries where you pick a driver. It's going to be a little more filtered based on the hardware you're using. And no Panasonic yet. I can click on start at this point. Nothing else to configure. I've got a question. Will I be able to store my own driver pack in the drop-down menu? We haven't built that in. I'm not sure if we'll be able to do that by MMSMOA, but that is something we can definitely extend and look into. Because a workflow disk target would be handy in the IO in case there's a system with multiple disks. Yes, we can do that. That would probably be something configured up here. We would put it as a configuration. And so we run into a little bit of an issue where if you're using the front end, if you're using a GUI, you can have all these things. The problem is if you want to use OSDCloud on a command line, it's really hard to know. I mean, do we know we have 2 disks before we start imaging? Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we find out at deployment time that we have to. So that might be a little challenging to figure out. And George, I'm going to punt that question to for later. So I'm just going to click on start at this point. And I'm seeing hello, David Segura. Okay. Not sure what that's all about. And what we're going to see here is there are entries in this flow here in the console that are in blue. These blues are the start of a new function. So the way the workflow has been broken up, it's been broken up into separate functions. So you'll be able to see the function that is happening at that particular point in time. So if you do get an error, we know exactly what's causing the error. So it's going to be faster for us to troubleshoot. Meaningless information is going to be in gray. Here we can see our operating system. We're now doing online checks to make sure we're able to connect to resources before we download them, including driver packs. And there is some verification in here. So I'm prompted to wipe my disk, and I'm probably going to stop this demo at this point. This will actually run through, but I don't think anyone really wants to see 10 minutes of downloading a Windows image or 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. But it's going to have the same look and feel as the previous version. The exception, architecturally, it's completely different. And I will let this keep running. We're not going to watch it, and we'll continue to move forward. So, I got a question here. The GUI needs a facelift. Yes, we know it.
Looks very similar.
What's that, Michael?
I said it looks very familiar.
So what we're trying to do is we're trying to nail down our requirements for what we want in OSDCloud and we're going to pass that over to two friends and let them handle the front end. And I've seen some of Benjamin's work on what he's doing with OSD Cloud for Zalando, and it's phenomenal. So we will have a modern UX. We just don't have that today. Hopefully by MMSMOA, we'll have something that we can all be proud of. Now, let's talk about the OSD Cloud engine. OSD Cloud engine is from the OSD Cloud PowerShell module, which was released on PowerShell Gallery today. I didn't want to ruin the surprise, but if you install it, there's only one function called Get OSD Cloud, and it's only informational. So if you were expecting to look at it and try it, it's not going to happen. It's a placeholder, and we will have that updated around MMSMOA. But what is key about the engine, and going back, George, to your question, can we see how a workflow is created, edited? Let's look at V1. This is the V1 OSD Cloud, and this was a single function. Everything we did in the GUI or the command line, we passed as variables to this one function that handled everything, and almost 2,500 lines. So, oh, we have a pop quiz. Do we have a gift card? No? Okay. Who can guess the number of lines that are in OSD Cloud Preview engine? Let's see some comments in chat.
700,000.
Okay.
420.
Quad sixes. All right, good, close. An amazing 10,000. No. 130.
We have a 200 there.
I think we had a 150. But
We need more comments, Dave.
Yeah. I wish this GIF was animated, but didn't feel it was appropriate. But what you're seeing here is this is the routine that is going to read instructions from a JSON. So you will be able to freely edit, configure the JSON according to what you want. And here is currently what the JSON looks like. Now, remember in the demo when it said, hello, David Segura, how did it know my name? Yes, all the parameters, everything we want to do with that specific function, we can add into the JSON file, which the engine is going to ingest and do whatever we want. So if we look at the command, those are functions. So if you really don't like the work we do, write your own function and put it in here, and it'll run your function, not ours. Is that cool? Is that something that you guys have asked for? And I think what this gives you complete control of how each step in the process is going to work, because you will have the ability to create your own workflows and be able to configure it however you want. Another thing I want to point out is, we do see I've got verbose highlighted. I've got debug. Yes, I can enable debug on any step, and it will stop at that step. I can drop to a PowerShell prompt, do some testing, exit the from suspended state. I can go back and continue my sequence. So this is very easy for us to troubleshoot anytime we come up with issues and to actually look at the problem as it's happening. So it's very good for us. And finally, I'm looking at some rules. These rules give me some flexibility as well. And I'll drop into a PowerShell prompt. And let's take a look at how these rules work. So now I normally would not suggest deploying, running a task sequence or deployment on your primary OS. But what this allows us to do by looking at each individual function and telling it that this function should not run in full OS, I can actually do something like this and start the process. And since each step is configured, whether it should be in PE, whether it can run in the OS as a test. I'm able to do a simulation in full Windows without having to build a PE and test in PE. So there are some steps I can test in PE, like downloading an image. But you see, it's clearly skipped wiping my disk, which I really didn't want it to do. So another way for you to kind of troubleshoot and help build your own workflows if that's what you want to do. Any thoughts on that? Comments? This is like the quietest crowd ever.
Yeah, hopefully everyone will enjoy this. Should be a lot easier to build on top of.
So let's go back to the VM. This is done. Nothing special. And I'll explain why this find module failed in just a second, but everything else should look similar. Every step, the driver packet download is a different step from the expand, from adding the specialize. So everything is broken down as much as possible into as small to digest functions that just get the job done. Now, when we come back here, updating PowerShell modules. So in V1 OSDCloud, what we would do is we had spelled out in the sequence to update a few modules by name. Now, what the new process is doing, it's actually looking into the OS and seeing what modules are installed on the base image, Windows 11. And it will enumerate all the installed modules and just update them. Now, if you don't want that to happen, you can remove that. But this error here is there's a module installed in the OS I just laid down called Microsoft.PowerShell.Operation.Validation, and there is no update in PowerShell Gallery for it. So, but it's automatically updating my PowerShell modules so that when I reboot to OBE and get into Windows, they're all up to date. Pester's up to date. PS readline's up to date. Package management, which it stays on an old version in PowerShell Get, those are up to date as well. And we can see that. Now let me see if I can drop into Explorer, and we can see the OS that's been laid down. And we'll look at these modules, and we'll look at package management, and there's my update. PowerShell Get. Already done. And this has probably been a pain point for a lot of people when they install a new OS. These modules need to be up to date for everything to function properly, for you to, get new modules from PowerShell Gallery. So that's how we're handling this. Dropping down from here, these name values, these are part of the sequence where I told it install OSD. I told it install Autopilot Intune. I don't see it here, but I can probably pull it up if you really want. And that's actually spelled out in the workflow as a parameter. I gave it, I told it this is the module I want to add to my OS. So that's done. Any questions on OSD Cloud or any of what you've seen?
Getting a lot of applauses. That's good.
This is it for OSD Cloud that we're prepared to show. We have something probably bigger to show. But we do have 2 sessions at MMSMOA on OSD Cloud. We've got an armed and ready. And I didn't talk about this, but our armed and ready session is ARM64. Will be 100% supported in OSD Cloud. The session is named with a capital ARM for that, but this is where we will show you the new OSD Cloud, and we will have ARM devices with us and actually use those. So after MMSMOA, OSD Cloud will support both AMD 64 and ARM 64. Is that round of applause at all? Is that
getting some hearts? Yeah. Lots
Greg has said we can have a happy hour. I hope he's not taking that back because he kind of said it would depend on feedback, and I'm not feeling it I'm not feeling it today.
You're not feeling the feedback?
I'm feeling my 3 coffees. I'm not feeling much more than that, but please, attend our sessions. And, let's, we're looking at doing a big.
You get a lot of reactions, so you
Yeah.
must feel nice now.
So let's see what we
Lots
got in
of
chat here.
reactions.
All right, Matthew. Yeah, I can't wait either. Eric, big pitfall in V1 we noticed was if the USB was built with a certain, then the modules up to the computer.
Gary kind of answered that one already.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the default mechanism was to update the module as it was booting up to pull the new stuff over. So
Yeah, well, the neat thing is, the modularity brings us some benefits. We don't have to, we expect updates will be less frequent, because we can now move all of our dev work into a separate module and then use the workflow, the JSON files, to specify a new function that we've updated and we're doing in dev. And we can test that completely before merging it into the main branch. So we have a lot of flexibility because we're not using a single function to handle the deployment. So Gary, would you say we'll probably have less updates? They'll be more targeted, and I expect core, when we finally get core defined, the clean OS, we won't change that. It's going to stay clean, and we'll have updates in other. We can release updates as workflows, as a separate workflow. You can pick in the drop down. And maybe we can tag them by month, or release like Microsoft does. This was released, 25-4, and that will stay stable as long as you run it.
hey, what are you doing on time? You guys get your pizza yet?
It's close. We'll see.
Literally getting dropped off right now.
Okay.
Literally just getting dropped off right now.
All right. So this is a good break. We're good here if you want. We can see if there's any more questions.
Yeah, let's give you a timeline. We've got some questions on any idea on the public release date. That falls the 3rd main bullet, June. So we're at today's preview. MMSMOA, we're going to release it to the attendees, give them a week or 2 to digest it, find any bugs, and then public sometime in June. It sounds like a long time, but MMSMOA is at the very end of May, so it's really not that far off. Late June, we're going to be at WP Ninjas UK. So hopefully we will have another module, which the .CLI, which is the command line version of OSDCloud. So understanding that it's a separate module, we can maintain them separately and keep that one fixed if necessary. But it will also have a separate workflow that's attached to with logic to, and so we don't expect those changes. Late June, let's see, summer public release, and September, we haven't been invited yet, and that's probably on me because I haven't submitted our sessions, but we have 6 planned submissions for WP Ninjas EU, which is also WPNinjas.ch. And we are targeting an MSP version of OSDCloud where you can do just about anything. So what about building PE? Okay, so the templates and the workspace will function as is. We're not taking those away, but we're not adding new features or fixes. The current function that's used to build WinPE cloud drivers will be removed post MMSMOA. Otherwise, everything else will stay stable. The answer is migrate to the new WinPE build process ASAP, which we haven't shown yet, and we will show shortly. Michael, do you have a couple minutes to give a preview of what's going to happen in the afternoon session?
Yeah, let me take over the share here.
Also have a couple questions in the Q&A tab.
Yeah, no, preview is more important. Q&A can wait.
Yeah, so
So
basically
explain
the
where you're
preview.
at, Michael.
Yeah, so where I'm at here, I'm in VS Code Insiders. I've got my OSD workspace open, which
That's
is
what we're
what you're
covering in the second session, right?
correct. Yeah, so definitely come to the second session to see basically how we get to this. And also I've got my Copilot chat open here. So I'm gonna ask it a few questions here, see what kind of results we get back. I'm gonna ask, what kind of builds do I have in my workspace here? See, we'll see that Copilot. Oh, okay, so it's found an index.json file. That's pretty cool. It's telling me that the information should be in there, and
Got
it's
4
spitting out.
PE builds, huh?
Oh yeah, no, wearing out this SSD here, And so yeah, it's giving me all kinds of stuff, saying I built them within the last couple days here.
Can you show us those PEs in your Explorer?
Yeah, and actually the cool thing about what a chat does here, kind of spits out these links here you can actually click on, jumps over to where these files are at. You'll see here I've got the index here, and then it shows where the PE builds are right here. So yeah, I got some
Nice.
AMD and some ARM one here. But then you can also follow up, kind of ask it like, well, maybe you want some specific information from these, and say like, well, what are the time zones that I built into these? It's going to kind of do the same thing. It's going to reference the files in the workspace here. It's going to tell me, all right, well, based off that index.json, here's the time zones you've got.
So
I've got
correct me if I'm wrong,
here.
but time zones when we build a PE in the new workspace, they're done automatically based on your system time zone, correct?
Correct, yeah. So yeah, I've definitely manually overridden a few of these. I'm nowhere near Mountain or Eastern here, so.
You've been traveling just to do this demo?
Yes, yeah, just to build these. Hopped over there real quick and came back.
You
Gary
got one
once
more
told me.
question you can ask?
Yeah, I got one more here. So let's see. I mean, I customized some of these builds, so I could say like, what WinPE scripts do I have in these? You're gonna see here, Copilot gets a little smarter. It starts realizing like some of the files it's used. And it's gonna parse through this here and hopefully give us what we're looking for. So yeah, it's saying this first one out of my library folder here. I used a few of these scripts to build my PE here. Kind of let it parse through here. And it even kind of gives you a little summary. These all came from my submodule here that I have. But yeah, I like these links that they post up here. You can, click these, opens up where it's at over in your workspace. This one saves my OSD module here. Got this OSDCloud GUI dev in my ARM build here. So yeah, we're definitely trying to architect the workspace here to ensure that Copilot has as much information as possible to, give you the answers to these questions and make it a little easier to work within Workspace.
All right. Well, pizza's here. Do we have any questions about what Michael's showing for Michael to answer? Yeah, we've got one here.
Oh, whoops.
Speak
Yeah,
up.
here we go.
There's custom instructions that you have implemented for the workspace specifically guide the
Second session?
Second session, yeah. Attend that. We'll let you know.
Yes. Another question?
Other questions?
I have
yeah.
a couple, I think were earlier in the chat or in the Q&A. I don't know if you have access to those or I can read them off.
Got that. I can answer Q&A.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to do that offline, that's fine.
Any other questions about what Michael has shown online? Any
Anything you want
questions
me to
about
attempt to
that?
ask here? Yeah.
We don't want to go too deep because that's going to be our second hour, but this is what we've been working on. Initial thoughts, can I get at least feedback from the room? Good, bad, fair?
awesome.
Just like,
Yeah.
All right.
see some thumbs in the,
I see it. Thank you, everyone. Awesome. We're gonna go deep dive on this in the second hour. So please come back and watch our session. That's all I've got for now. Gary, thanks for joining via satellite.
Yeah,
And,
my pleasure.
And Michael, enjoy your lunch, and we'll see you back here.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, thank you all. Really appreciate it. Good stuff.
Thanks, everyone.